This is the background reading on ancient Mesopotamia, starting with the Fertile Crescent. Civilization developed slowly in different parts of the world. People began to settle in areas with abundant natural resources. A section of the Middle East is called the Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent is a rich food growing area in a part of the world where most of the land is too dry for farming. The Fertile Crescent is a boomerang-shaped region that extends from the eastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. Some of the best farmland of the Fertile Crescent is on a narrow strip of land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which drew people to the region, although navigating the rivers was hard. The Greeks later called this area Mesopotamia, which means between two rivers. Mesopotamia has low rainfall. Tigris and the Euphrates have much more dramatic spring floods than the Nile from snowmelt in the highlands of Anatolia. They also carry more silt, so that the region has always had problems with poor soil and drought. Despite how hard they had to work at irrigation, many different civilizations developed in this small region. The early people of Mesopotamia became farmers and then builders of cities. First came the Sumerians, who were replaced in turn by the Assyrians and the Babylonians. Today, this land is known as Iraq. The Sumerians moved to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers about 3500 BCE, but we do not know where they came from. They were probably nomads who discovered the fertile land between the rivers. Nomads travel in small groups until they have eaten the food that grows wild and hunted the animals in the area. When food is no longer plentiful, they move to a new area. Eventually, the Sumerians developed a civilization. They learned that by planting seeds and growing their land, they were able to grow crops. They learned to domesticate or tame animals to help them plow their lands. The Sumerians learned to use irrigation. Irrigation is a system of watering crops to grow more food. The Sumerians also made a very important invention, the wheel. The invention of the wheel made it possible to pull heavy loads. The borders of Samaria were insecure, which left people constantly in danger of attack. Therefore, Samaria was composed of several city-states or nations the size of cities. Walls around each city-state protected the citizens from outside invaders. Farmland was usually outside of the city wall, and people would seek protection from the walls of the city when under attack. Mud, clay, and reeds were the only materials the Sumerians had in abundance to build. Trade was therefore necessary to supply the city workers with materials. Merchants went out in overland caravans or in ships to exchange the products of Sumerian industry for wood, stone, and metal. Since average homes were built with clay, they were often devastated during floods. Maybe because they were attacked so often, they ti- or because the time and effort rebuilding their homes, the Sumerians did not have a stable central government until Sargon the Great took control in 2200 BCE. Sumerians' lives were, as philosopher Thomas Hobbes described, short, nasty, brutish. Sumerian religion. The Sumerians were polytheistic, which means they believed in many gods. The gods were said to have created human beings from clay for the purpose of serving them. The gods often expressed their anger and frustration with people through earthquakes and storms. Although the gods preferred justice and mercy, they also created evil and misfortune. A Sumerian had little that he could do about it. Overall, Sumerian religion taught that humanity was at the mercy of vengeful gods. The Sumerian afterlife involved a descent into an uninviting world to spend eternity in a wretched existence as Giddim. They worshipped their gods at huge temples called ziggurats. Each ziggurat was dedicated to a specific god whom the Sumerians believed ruled over their city. When one city was conquered, the invaders would force the conquered people to accept their gods. This section on waterfront living can be read at any time. Most people live near water. If you look at any large city, you'll probably find the water nearby. People need the water for drinking, cooking, cleaning, and transportation. Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, is an obvious place for a civilization. Ancient Egypt developed along the Nile River. In America, New York City has a harbor, Chicago grew alongside Lake Michigan, and Los Angeles is on the Pacific Ocean. Civilization. There are many ways to define a civilization, but most scholars agree that when a society begins to form cities, it becomes a civilization. Most civilizations have the following elements: a surplus of food. When people have enough food, they begin to develop their needs. Division of labor. When people have one job, they tend to do that job very well. They also are more likely to choose a job in a field they enjoy. Organized government and religion. When people have the same laws, it is easier to trade. People living under the same government or having the same religious beliefs are likely to have the same values. Writing. This allows societies to keep records and to communicate. The ancient Sumerians achieved all of the aspects of civilization and also made scientific and technological advances that last today. The Sumerians developed a number system that is based on the unit 60. They divided the hour into 60 minutes and the circle into 360 degrees, as we still do today. They also developed basic algebra and geometry. Numbering years. In ancient calendars, years were generally numbered according to the year of a ruler's reign. For example, the third of the year of Hammurabi's rule, about 525 into the Common Era. A monk named Dionysius suggested that years be counted from the birth of Christ. Today we live in 2006, which is sometimes written as AD 2006. AD refers to the term Anno Domini, or the year of the Lord. The years before the birth of Christ are numbered backward from his birth. The year before AD 1 was 1 BC, or 1 year before Christ. When referring to dates before the birth of Christ, the higher the number, the earlier the year. Modern day terms. Non-Christians often use the term Common CE in place of AD, which refers to the Common Era or Christian era. They mark the era preceding the Common Era as BCE, which can either mean before the Common Era or before the Christian era. Since years are marked from a set point known as 1, there is no year 0. 3500 BCE was about 5500 years ago. And for clarification, in this class, we refer to it as Common Era or before the Common Era. Writing. Ancient Sumerian record keepers marked pictographic symbols in soft pieces of clay with a pointed reed. The clay tablets were then baked to make them hard. We call the Sumerian writing system cuneiform. Cuneiform means wedged shape, because the marks of the clay were wedges. The first pictographs were simple. A writer would draw an object like a fish or a broom to communicate to others. The system worked well in early society, but it would be difficult to describe abstract concepts such as justice or liberty in pictographs. Eventually, most cultures developed phonetic writing systems, where a symbol represents a sound rather than an object. Writing allowed civilization to develop. Writing allowed people to keep records of their transactions. Writing made it possible for people to send messages with couriers to faraway lands without traveling. Writing allowed people to pass on their accumulated knowledge to future generations. The section on Gilgamesh. A long narrative Sumerian poem, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is one of the oldest works of literature in the world. This epic collection of stories about a hero named Gilgamesh. The poem tells of a great flood that covers the earth many years earlier, making it similar to the story of Noah in the Old Testament, of the Jewish and Christian holy books. Is it only a myth? Modern science has discovered that there was marked increase in sea levels about 6,000 years ago. As the last ice age ended, The melting ice drained into the oceans, causing the sea level to rise more than 10 feet in 1 century. Hammurabi. Hammurabi was the king of the city of Babylon, about 1800 BCE. Hammurabi conquered the nearby city-states and created the kingdom of Babylonia. He recorded a system of laws called the Code of Hammurabi. The 282 laws were engraved in stone and placed in a public location for everyone to see. Hammurabi required that everyone be responsible for their actions. Some of Hammurabi's law were based on the principle an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and this means that whoever commits an injury should be punished in the same manner as that injury. If someone put out another person's eye, their eye would be put out in return. Hammurabi's code may seem cruel today, but it was an early attempt at law. The Assyrians lived upstream on the Tigris River from the Babylonians. The people of the region did not know how to read, but in about 1350 BCE, they managed to conquer all of Mesopotamia and build an empire that reached as far as Egypt. The Assyrians developed powerful armies with iron weapons. They dammed the rivers leading into Babylonia. This deprived the Babylonians of water. The Assyrians also used chariots, which allowed them to move quickly, and battering rams, heavy logs carried by many men, to break down city walls. In time, the Medes and the Persians conquered the Assyrians. The Medes and the Persians were two powerful civilizations east of Mesopotamia, in land we now call Iran.